Hello, everybody, and welcome to Loremaster Investigation, where we sit on our floating castle talking to our animated pieces of furniture and items that we use and muse upon the tabletop role playing game medium. I'm Cody.
And I'm Joe.
Wow, that
And
was the most dragged out intro that
I kind of dug it. I thought it was kind of neat.
it kind of gave me
Uh,
some like X Files narrator intro kind of
hmm.
vibes.
Cody is an idiot and he meant to say Twilight Zone.
I'm not as familiar with that show, so
Gotcha.
uh, I wouldn't know one way or the other. But hey, how have you been, Cody?
I've been good. How have you been?
I've been all right, thanks. Just trying to stay busy, trying to stay nerdy, and
Yeah.
coming up with fun ideas and questions and thinking about all kinds of nerdy stuff. Reading comics,
Yeah.
books, playing a lot of Among Us. A
Nice.
lot a
Have
lot of
you
Among Us.
have you mastered the art of being the imposter?
Um
I feel like it's a
so
really hard thing to do.
yeah, I would say I have my strategies.
Sure.
Um and I feel like the thing is that like I feel like I would get better at it if I had sort of like a core group of people that I play with like on the reg.
Sure.
But sometimes you're just playing with like a bunch of, probably teens,
Sure. Sure.
trying very hard not to reveal the fact that you're like a 30-year-old person just like hanging out with a bunch of
The
teens.
real the real imposter was
That's
just you
that.
trying to blend in.
Yes. I've described it to people. Like I've had people be like, "Hey, I want to start playing that like Among Us game. Like, what do you think?" I was like, "Oh, one, it's a lot of fun. I highly recommend it. It's a fun game. Two, you have to get used to like shitty teen, and in a way, you start to feel like an anthropologist. Because you're just kind of like, I am among them. Like, I observe their ways. I see their susses. I see their slangs. And then someone will be like, "What's your Instagram?" I'm like, "Abort, abort, abort." And then I like log out immediately. I'm like, boop, 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 boop.
I mean, I feel that. I feel that. Yeah, it's
uh, but yeah, I mean, I feel like the thing is though, like when you're playing with like just a bunch of randos, like
sure.
sometimes you'll have people who are just trolling and will just like start voting without any like rhyme or reason.
Right.
Sometimes you'll have like, you know, a frustrating thing when you're playing with randos is like a lot of times if you don't start a game with like you'll like start a game with 10 people, but like it will almost inevitably become like a 7-player game within like the first 10 seconds because like half the people will drop because they didn't get imposter. Um
Right,
Things
right.
like that. But I mean, it's one of those deals where it's like I just kind of play cuz you got to get used to like the timing and the rhythm of some of the games, and
Sure.
um that helps you become a better imposter too, right? Because like you learn how long a download conceivably takes, and you learn how long like like the Wire game takes, and things like that. And so it's one of those deals where it's like I have fun no matter what side of the equation I'm on,
Sure.
um, which is cool, yeah. And then how's Destiny doing? Are you still playing that game?
I'm still playing Destiny. I am I'm I think the last thing I'm working on before Beyond Light comes out, which it comes out soon, which I'm really excited about, is there is a weekly thing that I need to do for a weapon to get its like bonuses. And that's like one of the cool things they added to the game is that there are certain like they call them exotics, but they're basically like the top tier weapons, but you can only ever equip one of these types of weapons at a time. And you can get buffs for them by complete like sometimes it's as easy as like kill 300 enemies using that gun, but this one is like, yo, you need to do this kind of difficult dungeon but then you also need to solve like a fucking heist, like safe cracking code, and you have to do it 3 weeks in a row to get it. And I'm just like so fascinated at how people figured out all this like high tier shit, you know? Like there's literally a website dedicated to figuring out this puzzle, and it's wild to me.
Huh. Interesting. Have
Yeah.
you gotten the spooky gun?
The spooky gun? I
I
don't know.
guess
I don't know what that means.
I don't 100% know either. There's like a voice actress I follow, or a voice actor I follow on Twitter, and they were saying that they were voicing like a Halloween spooky gun for Destiny. I don't know, Erika Ishii.
Weird. I
Maybe it's
don't.
just like from this new update. Who knows?
I
Um,
mean, I have played the Halloween update season, or not season, Festival of the Lost, which is kind of like a. Anyways, it's not super important. You know what? You know what is important though?
is it Bookie?
Yeah, Bookie is whining in the corner. Oh, I didn't realize
No, that
he
was me
was
trying to
blue,
do. That
blue
was
from
me.
Blue's Clues.
Oh, thank God! I thought it didn't. I thought it didn't track.
Oh no, no, no,
Um,
that definitely tracked. I had like this weird, like nostalgic, like dopamine rush.
Blue's good too. We can too.
Hello, my name is
Uh,
Fantasy Steve, and I'm here with Bookie, the new, the new animal.
oh man. Oh, Bookie just opened up and was like, "Hey, hey, hey, guys.
Well, oh my
Uh,
God, it talks now.
sure, why not?"
Okay, I mean, yeah,
Uh,
it's fantasy.
and the book says, "Hey, friends. Uh, I'm a long time listener, first time caller, writer, whatever. Uh, and I'm DMing. How does one get character backstory into your story and into your settings?"
Ah, yes,
Ooh.
the mining players for plot relevant stuff in their backgrounds.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sure
so
there's an
here's
easier way to say that, but that's where I went.
I mean, obviously. So, have I ever told you my this is going to relate, I swear. Have I ever told you my Guardians of the Galaxy theory and why I love that movie so much?
I don't think I've heard it, but if it's Guardians of the Galaxy sounds like the D&D in space, I totally understand that vibe.
Yeah, it was the first time I had truly felt like I was watching a group of people playing a role playing game,
Yeah.
like in a movie. And the reason that is, I think, to me, is a fascinating thing that I was able to pull off is it had characters where everyone felt kind of like the heart and kind of like the badass of the party all at the same time. Which is one of those tricky little things about Dungeons and Dragons, right? It's kind of a story where you have like five, at the minimum like two to upwards of six protagonists.
Right, right.
Um, and so, you try to do it in such a way that like they're all kind of feeling like they're equally important, and that they're all kind of driving this story moving forward. And I think a big way of doing that is, we have talked about it before on this very show, is kind of coming up with, backgrounds, or maybe simple ideas, or more complicated ideas of what your character can look like. And that kind of gives the DM fuel to kind of like fold this into um the plot and the world in such a way that, maybe it wasn't just random chance that brought this group of people together. So I
Sure.
think that this is an interesting and a special way of getting, kind of adding some fuel and some interest of your party into your D&D campaign. So do you want to start off by asking me a question, or do you want me to ask you a question?
Um, You know what? Why don't you start?
Okay, cool. Okay, so what is your process of adding character backstory into your games? Is it something that you retrofit into something you've already planned, or do you create a whole new thing, whole cloth?
You know, that's actually a really good question, and I think it kind of peels the veil back a little bit to how Dungeons and Dragons works, or how tabletop role playing games work in general. It doesn't even have to just be D&D. That's just kind of my flavor of all this. But it's a bit of both, actually. So when I craft a story, if I know I'm going to be in a long-term campaign, I generally have some outlining ideas. You know, I have a antagonist who wants to do something that the party is in opposition of, right? I have the characters are in this situation at first because of this. And then
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the in between and how they are all connected, I leave fairly open ended on purpose so that when the party's barbarian goes, oh well, I was a prince in a far off land and I was kicked out from there, well, I can take that nugget of information that the barbarian has given me and been like, oh well, the antagonist was responsible for that. Now they're
Mm.
mad at the antagonist, and then if I continue to do that with everybody else, it connects the party. It moves them forward into trying to defeat them, etc., etc. However, sometimes I don't really have an answer right off the bat, or sometimes I've left it too open ended, where somebody who maybe hasn't given me a whole lot of information doesn't have anything, and so I
Okay.
do have to kind of go, okay, well, I have to make something. I have to have something happen in game to have them be connected like that. And so yeah, it really depends. Honestly, it depends on how much the players have created in terms of backgrounds. If they've created a lot, oftentimes I just like tweak my story a little bit so it fits. But if they haven't given me anything, I will whole cloth like make something for that moment.
Interesting.
Yeah. For you as a player, what do you like to put in your background notes for GMs or DMs to farm? Is there a hierarchy to it, or is it usually just like a single piece of information that the GM has to find?
Hmm. Um. So I think if people have listened to other episodes of Lore Masters, they'll know that my philosophy of character creation has kind of changed over the years. Where I've started going for a more simple is better kind of approach, and letting sort of these characters like grow and evolve along the way. But I think a big thing for me is trying to align them pretty strongly with like a faction one way or another, or creating maybe like a couple of NPCs that can make their way in a meaningful way. And I think like to use and once again, I think this is something that can grow and evolve over time as well. And so like with my last character in our the six campaign, I kind of established a thing in like a in a character driven scene where I was kind of going through like why this criminal became a cleric, and it ultimately resulted in a thing I wasn't personally expecting but ended up being really cool, which was that the leader of the reason I was kicked out does was not the same as my like um oh goodness, hot-headed young dwarf thought it was. I thought I was kicked out for X reason, and then I discovered it was for like, Y reason, and that ended up being really cool because in a way, it was a nugget that I had left, but you know, when you kind of do that, that's the way your character sees the world. And so that's always the thing I like, is keeping things open-ended enough that like a dungeon master or another character can kind of take those pieces and show that other perspective. I was very much a person who, in my younger days, like tried very hard to meticulously plan out like every aspect of my character's life, like X and Y and Z, and I would sometimes get mad because other people weren't playing along in such a way. But now it's one of those deals where I think it's really cool when my character thought X, but it turned out that it was actually like B or C. Um, so it's one of those deals where it's like, I try to give like one really solid faction connection, and then try to establish one or two NPCs that could potentially be mined in at a later date. So yeah,
Cool. I like it.
yeah. Okay, have you ever had a difficult time mining a character backstory into your game, and if so, how did you handle that?
Yes, and if you are a experienced or fledgling DM and you haven't experienced this yet, I guarantee you that at some point in your career, unless you play with the same people for the rest of your life, you will. Um, this is something that I feel it's no, I wouldn't say it's quote unquote anyone's fault. I think there are certain levels of um, I think everyone brings something a little unique and different to the table, which also includes like the level of like how you're playing a tabletop role playing game, right? Because I know when I first started, I was like a war gamer who was all about tactics and wanted to roll dice and things like that. And over time, I turned into the person who doesn't really give a shit about the numbers. I'm more interested in the stories and the connections and things like that. That being said, yes, I have had difficulties in the past with, and it usually happens when the player does not offer any backstory, or the backstory is so um, like there's nothing there. Like it's a one word sentence that doesn't really give me any kind of um, allegiance, like basically what you said, right? It gives me nothing. It's kind of like the I grew up on a farm, and that's it, and that's all you're giving me. That's the kind of stuff where it's like, oh shit, okay, because then the game master tends to run that awkward tightrope of how much am I allowed to do to that, right? Like, can I say, like, is it cool that I say, oh, well, you came from that farm, and then later in the campaign, your family sold the farm? Like, is that what you want? Like, there's a lot of ambiguity there, and if you don't know your players well enough, it might be, quote unquote, rude or mean to be overbearing like that and change and tweak their backstory like that. Um, that being said, the best thing you can do is while you're in game, you ask that person questions about their past. And make it important to the decision or the things that they have to do. For instance, we'll use the example of I'm a boy from a farm. You come to a scene where it looks like a caravan has been attacked and robbed, and you can see that nearby there are tracks in the mud that lead off somewhere else. So and so, the farm boy. How familiar were you with the tilling process on your farm, or did you even grow crops at all? Were you more of a animal farm? And those are the kinds of questions that you can have the character think, oh, or the player be like, oh, I never thought about that. Well, I like the idea that they were like an animal farm, so maybe they don't know anything about like tilling the land or anything like that. And that's where, if you do that enough, you'll eventually get to a point where you can start farming a or planting a seed for their background to become very important in your campaign later. It's a bit of a gradual effort, but it is an option. It's something that I've done in the past, and it's something that I will continue to do if I'm ever caught in that situation.
Interesting. I like it.
Yeah, and then my question for you is, what would you recommend to new players when they want to make something about the character a part of the story?
Hmm. Well, one more time, please.
What would you recommend to new players when they want to make something like a concept of their background, or just they have an idea of something about their newly created character to be a part of the story?
Yeah, I feel like this is one of those deals where this is where open and honest communication with your dungeon master becomes really important. Um just because, obviously you have to understand that a dungeon master isn't going to be able to incorporate every single aspect of your character's backstory, but like, you kind of learn what to emphasize when you're talking about your past, or even straight up like asking the dungeon master, like, here's a prime example. So my character, he grew up in a gang, and so I asked Cody, like, where do you think a person with like a rough background might have grown up? And so Cody mentioned the town of South Shore, and I was like, okay, that works well for me. Sounds cool. Um, and if you can like get a DM to kind of commit to like a hard locale like that, there's a decent chance your party's going to end up there at some point. Maybe it's not completely possible. Maybe that's not even something you necessarily want, but it is in such a way that you can create it that it kind of like folds in to it. I would say another thing that can be helpful um is it's not necessarily a requirement, but I feel like a way that something can be helpful is like, if you're already familiar with the people you're playing with, trying to create maybe at least a little bit of overlap with another player character in the game, right? In game, because chances are, if two people have either had a run in with like the same guild, or uh the same NPC, like, oh, I know about like old Terry, the old Terry, the seer of Westanon. It's one of those deals where if more people have a familiarity with something like a non-player character, or a place, or a group of, or an individual, or even an item, then that feels like it's more likely, because at that point you're starting to kind of build in more interest from other people in your party as well. So either working with someone else to like maybe kind of come up with like a mutual thing that you know about, or trying to find out a key piece of information in the setting that makes it more likely. So like, hey, if your character is from, South Shore, um and South Shore is established to be a big city, there's a decent chance that you might have to go to South Shore at some point for some reason. So, yeah, that's kind of my thought, is working with your DM and or working with other party members is always a good thing, because at the end of the day, this is a collaborative storytelling system.
Yeah, I 100% agree. In fact, I'll add my 2 cents as a, for the most part, a forever GM. Um, if you have something that you want to incorporate, whether it's a character or just an idea, even if it's just like an idea, right? Like, oh, I'm interested in doing this thing, or like, I really like the idea of my character doing this. Like, bring that up to your game master. I would argue that you would be hard pressed to find a game master who wouldn't fucking love that, who like someone who's so excited about the prospect of something that they come up to their game master and be like, is there a way I can incorporate this like character building moment in the game, and or something like that, or like, I'm interested in these kinds of things about my character, could we explore those? They would love that. It's fuel to their imagination to like incorporate all that stuff. So definitely, um as most solutions for any kind of tabletop role playing games situation, talk to your players, talk to your game master, and I'm sure you'll be pleasantly surprised at how willing both are to cooperate with one another. It's not as antagonistic as people sometimes make it out to be.
Yeah, I mean, that at the end of the day, I think that's the big thing, right? Is, we've talked a lot about how every table is different and all of that stuff. But from my mind, the more you work with your everyone around the table, the more fun everyone's going to end up having, because we make it a collaborative storytelling experience together. So there you have it.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts or?
Um I mean, nothing that we haven't already talked about, other than like, I think backgrounds and like, the collaborative storytelling part of tabletop role playing games is super fun, and it can be a really exciting part. And I think people, if you are struggling with this at all, you're probably not. But if you are, reaching out to your players or whoever you are struggling with, to like ask them about it, I'm sure 99.9% of the time you're gonna have a good time.
Yeah, I agree. Hey Cody,
Yeah.
if people like this episode and they want to learn more, where's a place that they can learn more?
They can go to our website at www.fandomroulette.com, where we have all of our episodes as they go live, and a bunch of other information if you're looking for more info about us, or about when I stream, or anything under the sun involving Fandom Roulette. You can find it there.
And hey, if people want to listen to share this episode with a friend, but they don't necessarily use the same podcatching apps that they use, what are some places that people can find episodes of our show?
They can, if they are Twitter savvy, they can reach out to us at fandomr_podcast, where we post announcements about the things that we're doing and when our episodes go live, etc., etc. Or if you are more of a Facebook or Instagram individual, you can search for us there with all the memes, pictures, and good times by searching Fandom Roulette.
And then, what are some platforms that people can find episodes of our show?
Oh, we're all over the place. YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, Stitcher, uh, iTunes, Google Play, basically any podcasting catcher app, you name it, just search Fandom Roulette.
Yes. Also, please remember to like, rate, review, and subscribe. Ring the bell. Tell a friend. Pass it
Yeah.
along to another person. Any little bit helps. Positive reviews help us move up the ranks, which gets us on the radar of more people to listen to what we do, and um, all that fun stuff. Help us get into those algorithms.
Yeah.
And yeah, we know that there's a lot of stuff out there for you to spend your time listening to and engaging with and all of that wonderful stuff. So we want to thank you for spending a little bit of time with us here on this show. We appreciate you, and we hope everything's well in your neck of the woods, and thanks for having us, I
Yeah.
guess. Hey, Cody,
Yeah.
you know what I want to tell our people?
Huh.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Fandom Roulette. And as always, stay nerdy.
Stay super nerdy.